The first time Empress Calith of the Virex Dominion heard the word human, she dismissed it as a statistical curiosity. Her empire spanned 7 star clusters and ruled over 43 sentient species. Entire civilizations rose and fell according to the slow, deliberate pulse of her decisions. Worlds were terraformed, suns were caged, and wars were calculated centuries in advance. In the grand machinery of the Virex Dominion, one fragile, carbon-based species from a minor blue planet on the galactic fringe meant nothing. At least, that was what Calith believed. She stood upon the balcony of the Imperial Spire, her towering palace floating above the capital world of Virexia Prime. Below her, the city glowed like a living constellation, spiral towers, energy bridges, and rivers of light flowing through the air. Her elongated silhouette was reflected in the transparent shield that separated her from the void. Silver skin etched with bioluminescent markings marked her as Virexian royalty, and her 4 eyes, too focused on the present, too attuned to probability streams, saw more than any ordinary being could. Calith did not inherit the empire. She took it. Through conquest, diplomacy, and ruthless foresight, she unified the fractured Virex clans and crushed rival dominions that underestimated her. She ruled not through fear alone, but through absolute control of information and time-based prediction. The future bent around her will. That certainty began to fracture the day the scout vessel returned from the Sol system. The high strategist knelt before her, mandibles trembling. "Empress," he said, "we encountered resistance." Calith's upper eyes narrowed. "From whom?" "A pre-warp civilization. Designation, humans." A ripple of irritation passed through her neural crown. "You lost a vessel to primitives?" "Not lost," the strategist corrected. "Compromised. One of them boarded us." Silence filled the chamber. Calith descended from the balcony, her presence pressing down like gravity itself. "Explain." The recording was projected into the air. Grainy footage showed a narrow corridor inside the scout ship. Alarm screamed in Virexian tones. Then a figure appeared. Small, two-limbed, encased in crude environmental armor. A human. He moved with reckless determination, using magnetic boots and a ballistic weapon far inferior to Virex plasma tech, yet he advanced anyway. He disabled a drone. He sealed a bulkhead. And finally, he stood before the scout captain, unafraid. "What does he say?" Calith asked. The strategist hesitated. "He demands dialogue." Calith stared at the image longer than she should have. Her probability sight flickered, branching futures cascading endlessly, yet around the human, the paths blurred. That unsettled her. "Retrieve him," she commanded. "Alive." The human arrived in chains forged from gravitic fields, escorted by elite Imperial sentinels. He was injured, exhausted, and defiant even as he stood in the Hall of Convergence beneath Calith's throne. "My name is Elias Morgan," he said before anyone could speak. "And I'm not your enemy." Calith regarded him with all 4 eyes. "You trespassed aboard my vessel." "You entered our system," Elias replied. "That makes it mutual." A murmur rippled through the court. No one spoke to the Empress like that. Calith should have ordered his execution. Instead, she leaned forward. "You are insignificant," she said calmly. "Your species will be absorbed or erased within 3 of your generations." "Then why am I still alive?" Elias asked. Again, that strange distortion in the future streams. Calith dismissed the court and ordered Elias confined, not to a cell, but to an observation chamber within the palace. She told herself it was for study, a variable to be analyzed. Yet she found herself returning often. Elias asked questions about her empire, about her species, about her. He spoke of Earth, its chaos, its beauty, its stubborn refusal to unify even under existential threat. He told her humans were fragile not because they were weak, but because they cared too much. Caliph scoffed at that. Care was a liability. Compassion slowed conquest. And yet, Elias refused to beg, refused to kneel. Even when threatened with annihilation, he spoke as if the universe might still be reasoned with. One cycle, Caliph showed him the projection of the Dominion's future, an endless expansion, total order across the galaxy. This is inevitable, she said. Resistance only increases suffering. Elias studied the vision, then shook his head. You don't see it, do you? See what? The silence at the end. Her lower eyes flickered. Explain. When everything is controlled, Elias said softly, nothing grows. Nothing surprises you. You win, and then you're alone. For the first time in centuries, Caliph felt something she could not quantify. Doubt. Weeks turned into cycles. Cycles into months. Reports of unrest reached her throne, vassal species rebelling, predictive models failing. Each time Caliph attempted to peer ahead, the futures tangled tighter, especially those paths involving humanity. And Elias. One night cycle, an assassination attempt shattered the Imperial spire. A rival faction detonated phase explosives, bypassing Caliph's precognitive defenses. Chaos erupted. Caliph was wounded. Her neural crown cracked, severing her link to the probability streams. It was Elias who reached her first. He dragged her from the collapsing chamber, shielding her with his own body as debris rained down. He did not understand her biology. He did not know if she could survive outside controlled environments. He only knew she would die if he didn't act. When Caliph awoke, the Empire felt quiet. She could no longer see the future. Panic clawed at her mind. For the first time, she was blind to what came next. Elias sat beside her. Welcome to being human, he said gently. You saved me, she whispered. Yeah, he replied. Guess that makes us even. Without her precognition, Caliph was forced to rule differently. She listened. She negotiated. She made mistakes. The Empire did not collapse as she feared, but it changed. When the coup leaders were captured, Caliph faced a choice she had never before considered. Execution would restore fear. Mercy would invite uncertainty. She chose mercy. Gasps echoed across the court. Later, she stood with Elias on the balcony overlooking Virexia Prime. My empire was built on control, she said. You have taken that from me. I didn't take it, Elias replied. I showed you another way. What happens now? She asked. Elias smiled faintly. Now you rule, without knowing how it ends. For Caliph, that was terrifying and liberating. Ending. Years later, historians would argue about the moment the Virex Dominion truly changed. Some claimed it was when Empress Caliph ended expansionist wars. Others pointed to the unprecedented alliance with humanity, a species once destined for extinction, now granted equal standing among the stars. But Caliph knew the truth. The Empire changed the moment she chose to trust a future she could not see. Elias eventually returned to Earth, older, scarred, and carrying stories no human had ever told. Caliph watched his ship vanish into the star lanes, feeling a quiet ache she allowed herself to feel. She ruled for decades more, not as an omniscient conqueror, but as a leader who listened, learned, and allowed the galaxy to surprise her. And when her reign finally ended, the Empire did not fall. It endured, not because she controlled everything, but because one human taught her that the unknown was not an